Hello, and welcome to ICF Minnesota's Meet the Coach interview series, where I take a moment to talk to a ICF Minnesota member and talk about their flavor of coaching and what they offer to the Twin Cities community. We run these interviews every month, and if you are an ICF member and you would like to be featured in our next Meet the Coach interview, feel free to reach out to me. But my name is Jen Espinoza Goswami, and I am the communications co-chair for ICF Minnesota, a position I share with Peter Pichet. And I'm so excited to bring to you today Bethany Kurbis, who is the founder and CEO of Integrative Coaching. Hi, Bethany.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you today, Bethany. Before we jump into the proper introduction, I want to share that we'll be going over some questions with Bethany, and she'll be sharing some ways you can connect with her. If this is your first time watching this interview series, please give us a like and don't forget to subscribe. All right, let's learn more about Bethany. Bethany is the founder and CEO of Integrative Coaching LLC, a boutique consultancy specializing in individual, group, and institutional coaching. With 15 years of experience in coaching, human resources strategy, organizational effectiveness, and talent development, she is uniquely positioned to develop leaders' skills, knowledge, and abilities to excel in their work for the purpose of achieving strategic goals, which we'll be learning more about today, aligning with core values and executing on and mission. Bethany was a humanitarian aid worker in Southern Sudan, and Northern Iraq from 2007 to 2010. I'm excited to dive into that, where she found her calling for coaching and creating safe spaces for people to tap into the rich resources they hold within themselves. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Crown College and a Master of Arts degree in human resources management from the Catholic University of America. You may not know it, but she's a professional certified coach, a member of the Forbes Human Resources Council, and holds multiple industry certifications, which I'm sure she'll share more about today, including Korn Ferry's competency modeling and 360 tools, as well as ProSize change management pilot professional. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so excited to learn more about you and the coaching work that you offer. It seems like you have a lot in your tool belt. So without further ado, can you share with us why did you start going into coaching?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. It actually starts that little blurb that you had in my bio. It started in Southern Sudan, actually. That's where it all started for me. I had the privilege of going to Southern Sudan during a peaceful time prior to them actually being an independent country. They were still one country with Northern Sudan at the time. And I worked for a small NGO, non-governmental organization based out of the Netherlands who they focused on psychosocial issues for individuals who are returning from refugee camps. And so I had the really amazing honor of joining their work. And I was focused on working with youth, young people, and talking about how to resolve conflicts peacefully. There was a lot of trauma. Most of these youth had returned from refugee camps and they were coming into their country with just a lot going on inside of them. And so what was really beautiful and powerful about it is there wasn't a curriculum, so to speak. There wasn't a didactic training that we did. What we did is we used a modality called forum theater. And what we did with these young people in these very small villages in Southern Sudan was we would talk about the last time they had a conflict and how it got to violence. And we would make a play about it. And in that play, they would experiment with new strategies for navigating the conflict. And so there was no training, there was no checklist, there was no this is right and this is wrong. It was truly giving them safe spaces to explore answers and solutions that they had within themselves. And Jen, it was absolutely magical. These young people found solutions I would never have been able to think about or come up with. They found it within themselves. It was truly magical. And I asked myself and others, what is this magical thing when we give people safe spaces to tap into their own resources? What is this called? And it turns out the answer was coaching. So that first year in Southern Sudan, I started learning about coaching, what it was, the power of it, found out that human resources is a nice kind of um, an add-on to make sure that I'm kind of working in the people spaces, especially organizationally. I was really compelled to work in organizations. And so the rest is history, as they say. I focused on pivoting into human resources after that, while I was working in Northern Sudan and then again in Southern Sudan. And as you mentioned, went back to, I got an opportunity to work in Northern Iraq for a little while, and used kind of these human resources concepts and brought a lot of coaching into it. So my approach to human resource management and talent development is with a coaching approach in mind. And so kind of came at it all from the foundation of the passion for coaching. So that's how I came into it. I feel really lucky that I got to find my passion and purpose at a really young age in a really formative experience.
Yeah, oh my gosh, your work in Sudan sounds amazing. And I've
Yeah.
never heard of something this forum theater work.
Yeah.
What a creative way to reframe perspectives and perhaps solutions
Yeah.
to some of the challenges that people are experiencing. And I love that you mentioned the safe spaces because that is so critical when it comes to coaching work. And I love that you parlayed that into human resources and brought that coaching perspective to your work with organizations. Going on into your coaching practice, now in your introduction, you shared that you work with individuals, groups, pretty much anyone. So tell us a little bit more about who you work with and where you like to work with them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so because of where my career started internationally, I think the majority of my work has been with international organizations, both nonprofit and private. So kind of both ends of that. And so because the network that I've been working within is very global, a lot of my clients are global. I had a coaching session with a dear client in Oman today. I actually was living in Kenya the past 2 years, so I've got clients in on the continent of Africa. I've got clients in Asia, Europe. So I feel really lucky that I've been able to kind of work on kind of a global level, just simply because of where it all started for me. So I would say that's definitely a part of my niche is working with international groups, and then from there, the types of clients I work with tend to be looking for a different way of approaching leading people. So I do a lot of leadership development these days, a lot of working with leaders on their inclusion and inclusive leader skills, talking about what it means to build a diverse and equitable workforce. And there's really, kind of big and small decisions to be made around that. So I work with actually a health equity and belonging firm right now, doing a lot of coaching and some consulting around how to bring more intentionality around their inclusive leader groups. And so the kind of a theme around kind of a global perspective to leading people, all coming from a coaching mindset. And so I have a pretty diverse group of different client groups, all the way from pharmaceutical data companies to nonprofits to private sector. And so it's kind of a nice sprinkling of clients. And what I love about that is people are people everywhere. And being able to take a coaching approach means we can meet people where they're at and assess their needs and go from there. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, where to start with that? There's just so much there.
Yeah, yeah.
it, if you had to summarize some of the observations you've noted, having lived abroad, worked with people from other countries, Asia, Africa, everywhere, and then taken some approaches with organizations, nonprofit, and companies within the US, what would you say have been your observations around what companies are or are not doing so well when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion here?
That's a great question, Jen. I think that there's an initial there's a couple of things. So, okay, I'll start with one of the things that I have noticed is kind of across the board when we start to talk about, diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion. leaders often see it as a burden to take on that's in addition to the other things that they're leading. It's kind of an add on, and there's a I think a little bit of a fatigue. People are tired. We've gone through a lot as a world, especially in recent years, and so there tends to be this, we don't have time and space for that. So one of the things I love to help reframe with leaders is if they are interested in healthy leadership. And what I mean by healthy leadership is modeling the really important skills and behaviors of leadership. My personal belief, and this is backed by research and people wiser and smarter than me, but that my belief is healthy leadership is synonymous with inclusive leadership. They are one in the same. So really, if an organization, it's not every organization cares about this, but if an organization cares about healthy leadership practices, they also care about inclusive leadership. So one of the things I like to do is come into organizations and kind of distill this notion that it's this big gargantuan initiative that's going to be separate from the things they're already doing. So there's a reason my company is called Integrative Coaching. I focus a lot on just kind of the integration of an individual and also just the integration of an organization's priorities. And you come to that with some intentionality and some consciousness. So the shift really is around being conscious of what inclusive leader behaviors are and integrating that into the day-to-day leadership thoughts they already have, the leadership concerns they already have. So the good news is I think it's very accessible to leaders once we kind of distill this in certain ways. Now, creating a diverse workforce is a very different conversation. And I think one of the things that we need to talk more about is kind of the full pipeline that's leading into organizations, meaning where are you looking for the talent, so to speak, that you want to come into your organization? Are the pipelines there? If not, how do we build them? I've talked to some leaders who have built some really amazing education and internship programs to build up a pipeline of diverse talent to come into their organizations. And so that is a different conversation. So creating diversity in ways that they maybe haven't yet is a very different type of initiative than talking about inclusive leader behaviors.
I like that you share there's a distinction there, because I think some people think that diversity includes all of the things under DEIJB,
Right.
Which is diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and
Justice.
belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes those terms get a little muddy and get a little convoluted in terms of it. This goes there and this goes there, and it's really hard to understand. Okay, we start with ourselves. That is something easy to understand, but how do we have this conversation around that, and what efforts are we going to prioritize? But I like how you share about the inclusive leadership. It's just part of who we are and how we show up. And there are ways to get really clear on that and to demonstrate that to our teams and the people working underneath us. So I like that you shared that. And yes, diverse workforces, maybe another conversation entirely. So it's good that they have people like you coaching them through this work, because it is a lot of work.
Yes.
And coaching is perhaps the right model to support them through that. Now, speaking of models, you do have quite a few tools and resources under your belt: process change management and your PCC for the ICF. So there's a lot going on there. What is one of your favorite tools or resources that you use most frequently in your coaching work?
Great question. Oh, I love that. And they're not even listed in the bio. I should switch my bio to make sure they're actually highlighted. Number one, for sure, is, well, I guess I was going to start with another one, but I'll start with mindfulness. I believe mindfulness is an incredible foundation upon which we can build everything else, right? Mindfulness leads to awareness, leads to consciousness, leads to intentionality. So I love helping clients become more mindful, just more mindful, right? And that doesn't necessarily need to be coming from some sort of dogmatic, religious origin, it's really, there's beautiful neuroscience about what happens when we use our breath to help regulate our nervous systems and to slow down and go from the limbic system into the prefrontal cortex where our executive function is. So I love working with leaders and organizations on just becoming more mindful. I think it's an incredible foundation. And I have you asked about books. Like I have a lot of books around that I love to use and refer back to. And I think it's a huge foundation that we can build from. From there, as far as an actual tool that I've been certified in, nonviolent communication as a book and a framework that I use all the time. And I think that it's incredibly powerful for a few things. Number one is to understand ourselves first and foremost. What am I feeling? What are the needs connected to that feeling, either met or unmet? How can I meet those needs? And then how can I maybe make some requests of myself or others? Well, it's such a great self-regulation tool. And then it's also an excellent communication tool once we've done some of that self-awareness and self-regulation. So I end up using that a lot in my work, both with individuals and with organizations, to help distill a lot of emotion in work and a lot of emotion in our lives, and understand what are these emotions telling us about our needs, and how can we take ownership of those needs, take responsibility for those needs, so we can show up in the way we want to show up. So that's a second one. I use the Enneagram personality assessment. That's been kind of having a moment the past few years, and so I was certified in it. I'm going to sound like a hipster, but I was certified in it before it was in this moment, and it's been so fun to have so many clients interested in it. But that's been a great personality tool to kind of talk about the fluidity of personalities. I like it because there's a lot of space for growth and also understanding what happens under stress. So those are a few.
Wow, so many amazing tools. For the nonviolent communication, who's the author or the one who created that work?
Yes, I'm gonna look it up right now. His name is Marshall. I've got it right here. There's a great website. I'll plug this. It's just cnvc.org. And that's the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And they've got great tools and frameworks. They have this, beautiful belief about sharing their content. It was written by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg.
Oh, Rosenberg. Okay, thank you for confirming that. And we'll put those links below in the show notes for those of you who are watching. We don't want you to miss a thing, including these amazing tools that Bethany is sharing with us. And I'm new to the nonviolent communication framework and ideas, so I look forward to checking that out in particular. I also use mindfulness in my coaching work. I think most coaches use some version of mindfulness and or grounding techniques because it is important to be present within a conversation, whether it's with groups or individuals. But Enneagram is interesting. You're right. It has had its moment, hasn't it? It's been very popular, very trendy. Yeah. What is your Enneagram?
I am a type 5. Yep. Type 5.
Okay.
Hence the tools and the research. Maybe, maybe I've outed myself before I said that. Yeah. Yep. How about you, Jen?
I'm a 7.
Nice. Okay. So I love 7s because I can tap into that at times. So yeah, that's fun. Yep.
And if you have an Enneagram too, let us know in the comments below the video, because we'd love to hear more and engage with you on this conversation. If you're familiar with Enneagram, if not, I will link below to a short quiz you can take to figure out what your type is, because it's kind of fun to do another personality assessment, and that's certainly one tool we could use. Yeah. So you are relatively new to returning to Minnesota, right, Bethany? I think you just mentioned that you were coming back from Kenya most recently. So I'm curious, how has ICF Minnesota helped you as a coach?
Oh, well, it's been beautiful. I mean, to just be really honest, Jen, just this connection alone has already been really rewarding, really fun, really exciting. I know there's more to come. So thank you for that, Jen. And the first contact I made was with Victor Thompson, and we have had a blast connecting. I haven't lived in Minnesota for 15 years. I left when I was really young. I left to go to Sudan, so that's the last time I lived here. So I was in Sudan for 3 years. Then I was in Washington D.C. for 10 years, and then Kenya the last 2 years. And so my stuff is on a boat between West Africa and the east coast of the U.S. And I'm kind of in the middle of this big transition. And I was nervous. I was nervous about carving out a brand new network in Minneapolis that I've never carved out before. My network is, as I mentioned, it's global, and it's really very well cemented in Washington, D.C. as well. And so I just thought, I don't know who I'm going to meet. I don't know what it's going to be like. And I was nervous about building a network here. And right away, the Minnesota ICF chapter has been just full of rich connections, purposeful conversation opportunities already to collaborate, which I'm very excited about. And anyone who's watching, I'm really looking for ways to collaborate with as many like-minded values-based coaches, as I can. So it's already been a huge gift and incredibly rewarding. And so, and I know this is just the beginning, which is pretty amazing because it's been great already.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear that, Bethany, and I have been enjoying our conversation very much. I'm glad you're already well connected with Victor, who serves on our DEIJB committee here on the board for ICF Minnesota, and he's also been interviewed as well. So I'll link to his interview below here if you're like, who's Victor? Why don't you meet our board members and know who's serving you in this community? So glad that as a global citizen and someone newly retransferred back to Minnesota, you have found the richness of connections and community here, because that's our goal here at ICF Minnesota. So super excited to hear that has been the case for you. How can folks connect with you, Bethany?
Yeah, so right now the best way is LinkedIn. LinkedIn message me, feel free. I have a website as well that I know Jen's going to be providing, and I've got a little contact form you can use there. But for right now, feel free to use LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time. It's a great way to kind of message back and forth and get connected. And if there's new or better ways, Jen, I'll be open to that through the chapter as well. Yeah.
Awesome. We're still figuring out how to pilot some new ways for our community members to connect with each other. So stay tuned for that. Okay. I'm sure there'll be more to discuss around that. But LinkedIn, I'll put Bethany's link down below if you want to connect with her. She's very open. She's very willing to have a conversation. So definitely take her up on that opportunity. Now, we're going to be closing today's interview with my favorite portion. But, some people get a little bit nervous about this portion. It's 3 things that we may not know about you, Bethany, from either your LinkedIn profile, your website, or just by scrolling your feed or figuring out where you're showing up online. What would be 3 things that we may not know about you or that you haven't yet shared during today's interview?
I love that. Yeah. Well, so the first one that, I just doesn't come up professionally very much is that one of my hobbies is doing music. I grew up in a really musical home, and I thought every family just like literally sat around a fire with guitars and banjos and sang every night and every holiday. And then, grew up and realized that was not the case. And so it's something I'm very grateful for. I've been able to collaborate with some bands actually that are based here in Minneapolis. And my family has kind of multiple bands that I get to participate with. So that's something that not a lot of my professional colleagues know about, is that I have some fun with music. And it's so fun to be in Minneapolis, which has such a strong creative presence in the arts, and particularly in the music scene. So I've already been soaking that in a lot, and really enjoying connecting with musicians and family members and friends who are in that space. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I've got a kind of corporate professional background, but I'm a nature girl. I love nature. And so being back in Minnesota, being by the lakes, being by the trails, I was able to go up to the North Shore for the first time in 15 years this fall. And that felt like a real homecoming. So it's really fun to explore, the world-class nature that Minnesota has. And I appreciate it so much more now, having been able to be a lot of places in the world. Coming back here is just a reminder that although it's snowing at the end of March right now, or will it comes with its other edges, but it's incredible nature to be able to be immersed in. And then the third thing is that this kind of connects to the first. I love karaoke, so I can be all buttoned up and professional, and I love to go out to the VFW with my sister and lay down some Bonnie Tyler, Celine Dion, Shania Twain, just let her loose a little bit. So yeah, I know how to have a good time after a long day of work. So yeah.
I love that. And those are things that I would not have expected you to pull out
good.
As things we
I chose
didn't know about
good
you.
things then. Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So going back to your love of music, I thought that was really very timely, because our event for April is Music is the Map, where we're going to have our first in-person learning of the year. And I'm so excited to hear more about how to use music within our coaching practice. So that might be one you want to check out. But
For sure. Yeah.
what kind of music do you perform, produce? Are you a producer or are you a
Yeah, no,
performer?
I mostly sing. A great question. I mostly sing. I do play guitar, and I probably undersell. I can play guitar, well enough to play most things. So I'm very grateful for that. And so, the tradition that I grew up in was kind of folk and Americana and kind of classic rock. So Fleetwood Mac is one of my favorite bands. I'm actually playing with my family at a gig next week, and there's a lot of Fleetwood Mac and a lot of folk and Americana and with some bluegrass and so yeah, so kind of a acoustic driven type of music, but my taste goes well beyond that. I love all music. There's like very little music I don't enjoy. And so, but yeah, as far as what I usually play and sing, kind of singer songwriter, Americana, folky kind of stuff, just because that was what I was raised around. So yeah.
That's super fun. And I love that you mentioned some of your favorite artists to sing karaoke too.
Yes. Oh
Those
yeah.
are all
Yeah.
classics.
Yeah. All the
I'll
classics.
turn that
Exactly.
towards you. And I'm so happy that you were able to get back to the North Shore because I'm from Wisconsin, so I grew up by Lake Michigan. But I can tell you, I have quit Lake Michigan and I'm all Lake Superior, Team Lake Superior and North Shore. So I'm totally with you on our trails and our nature. We just cannot be beat, especially in the summertime here in
It's
Minnesota.
so true. Well, I love that. I love that you're a Lake Superior convert. Welcome. That's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
It is truly the greatest of the Great Lakes. At least that's my professional opinion.
I tend to agree. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing interview with you, Bethany. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our members or just anyone who's listening today in regards to why coaching matters that much to you?
Oh, well, I think one of the questions you had in your document was I think something about what do you love about your coaching? And I
Yes.
think the thing that I am so excited to explore and have fun with the Minnesota chapter is just how magical coaching can be. It has created magic in my life. I see it creating magic in our clients' lives, and I think it's such an important practice. I'm so grateful to be able to share just experiences and connections with other coaches. I think there's really kind of nothing like it to be able to sit in a room with a lot of other coaches. I think it's really, really, truly magical. And so I guess that's one thing I would like to say. And then the second thing is just how excited and grateful I am to be a part of this chapter, excited to meet more people, connect, collaborate, learn, grow, and do all of that with this chapter. I'm really looking forward to it. So like you said, I'm very open to connecting. I'm in the middle of transitioning into a big new chapter of my life, and this Minnesota chapter is already a blessing for that. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to Minnesota. We're happy to have you. We're happy to have you engage with us. And I was quite surprised when within your welcome post to welcome to ICF Minnesota, you were ready to jump in and say, I
Oh
want
yeah.
to do the interview. I want to connect. You've already connected with several board members. So you are definitely welcome here. And we look forward to seeing where this collaboration takes us and what's new for you and what's coming up in the coaching world. So thank you so much. This has been a wonderful Meet the Coach interview with Bethany Kurbis here of Integrative Coaching LLC. My name is Jen. I'm the communications co-chair. If you want to be featured on the next Meet the Coach, I can't wait to have a conversation with you. See below the video to connect with me directly so we can get you featured in front of all of ICF members. This is a benefit of your membership. So if you haven't taken advantage of it, and if you're shy to be on camera, it's okay. We can do a written version as well. We're here to accommodate you. So feel free to connect with us. And if you've watched and enjoyed this video, please give Bethany a like, connect with her on LinkedIn, and make sure to share this episode with the coaches within your community. Thank you so much for joining us for ICF Minnesota's Meet the Coach with Bethany Kurbis. Take care.
Thank you, Jen.